It's Friday the 27th of February. From the MEN newsroom, this is Channel M's Lunchtime News, and these are today's headlines. Jail for the former model who glassed a student in the face at a city centre bar.
I'm now behind in my studies by a year. I used to do lots of teaching and presentations, but now I had to cut all that back because I just lost all my confidence.
Also coming up,
obviously, we're delighted. We were, I suppose, secretly hoping that it would be pulled all together. So the fact that it's been pushed back to 2016 is the next best thing we could have hoped for.
And under threat, the school in Bury that parents say they're desperate to save.
And quite honestly, no matter what we say, it's not going to make the slightest bit of difference. The schools are going to be amalgamated, whether the Derby High School wants it or not.
Good morning. Our top story. A mum has been reunited with her baby after he was stolen in the back of her car. The 4-month-old had been taken by a thief in Bolton who then dumped the toddler on a pavement. Police then chased the car through Brightmet before it crashed. We've been speaking to some of the people who helped try to stop the vehicle.
I heard what was going on. We ran out and I ran down to the car and I thought it was actually a domestic thing because he was in the front of the car and the husband was at the back door. And I turned to walk away and the husband says, "Help me, they're stealing the car with the babies in it." So then we got the baby out and tried to get the other baby, but the guy sped off then with the door opened and all that, and that was it carried on for what they says after that, really.
And what were the family doing?
The mum was in the front screaming at the guy to get the babies out. I actually think the guy turned back down there to give her the babies back. But because we were all out, it spooked him and he probably thought he was going to get lynched or something.
Well, we're expecting an update from police on this later in the afternoon. They're now questioning a 30-year-old man who's been arrested, and we'll have more from them in our early evening news from 5 o'clock tonight. An air hostess is starting 2 years in jail for an attack in a Manchester bar that left a student scarred for life. The actions of former model Lisa Key were described in court as vicious and unwarranted. Georgia Calvin-Smith's on this.
For Liam Sharratt, a night out with friends left him scarred for life. His injuries were so bad that his cheek was all but severed from the rest of his face. He'd been in the city centre bar, the living room, when he met his attacker. 29-year-old former air hostess Lisa Key was visibly drunk and carrying a full glass of wine when she approached Mr. Sharratt's group. They started talking, but what started out as friendly banter quickly turned ugly. Key took offence at a comment of Mr. Sharratt's and threw her wine over him. He laughed and she responded by punching him and then stabbing him twice in the face with her wine glass.
It was only when someone took my scarf off me and put it on my face that I realised, oh my God, you know, she's glassed me in the face.
Key was arrested and eventually pleaded guilty to a charge of unlawful wounding. Yesterday, she faced the consequences of her actions. Key was extremely distressed and wept loudly throughout sentencing. The judge acknowledged that what she'd done that night was out of character, but said that the attack was nevertheless vicious and unwarranted, and said that for the rest of his life, Mr. Sharratt would have to live with the effects of what she'd done to him every time he looked in the mirror. The judge acknowledged that Key was extremely frightened as to what was going to happen to her, but said that he expected that the fear would be worse than the actuality, before sentencing her to 2.5 years in prison. Key had to be dragged wailing into custody. But as much as her choices mean her life will be very different from now on, Mr. Sharratt had no control over how his future was transformed the night of the attack.
There's the scar itself and then the psychological consequences that come from the scar. I'm now behind in my studies by a year. I used to do lots of teaching and presentations, but now I had to cut all that back because I just lost all my confidence. I'm pleased that she's gone to prison. I think it shows a great example for other people not to do this kind of thing.
Key has been ordered to serve at least half of her sentence. Georgia Calvin-Smith, Channel M News.
It's thought a car that exploded in the early hours on a road in Whalley Range could have been targeted on purpose. Vandals are believed to have caused the blast, which damaged the BMW and a Toyota Avensis, which was parked nearby. Nobody was hurt, but officers are treating it as an attempt to put lives in danger. There'll be major disruption to tram services from April. Details of engineering work to replace older tracks in the city centre have been announced. It means there'll be no direct services running through from Victoria to Manchester Central and around Piccadilly. Some replacement buses will be used along with the shuttle service. Her grandmother from Salford, who won a long fight to be given the new cancer drug Sutent, says her condition is improving. Jean Murphy from Salford's now planning a party after doctors told her the tumours in her lungs have reduced in size. The 63-year-old was given just 18 months to live last April after her disease spread from her kidneys. Work on a new bypass that was due to be built around Mottram has been put off until 2016. The organisation funding the plan needs to cut its budget, and while some people there are disappointed, environmental campaigners are celebrating, as Ben Bland's been finding out.
Rush hour in Hollingworth and a familiar, frustrating sight for both drivers and residents between Manchester and Sheffield. To reduce traffic going through here and nearby Mottram and Tintwistle, there are plans for a bypass road. Shown here in red, it would start at the M67 roundabout and run parallel to the busy A57 and A628. But some people are strongly opposed because it would mean building over Swallows Wood. Plans for the long-awaited bypass are now on hold until 2016 at the earliest because there isn't enough money.
It's great that they've pushed the funding back to 2016, but what we now hope is that people who want to solve the problem will come together to look at all other ways of doing this rather than clinging to the bypass. Let's move on, let's get to solving the problem as soon as possible and work together to find, a positive solution for everybody.
Alternative solutions that have been put forward include imposing a weight limit on the roads to stop lorries passing through the villages. But those in favour of the bypass are unhappy with today's announcement and say the alternatives won't work.
There's various people from the government being up here over the years, transport ministers, and when they've gone back to London, they've always said, yes, we agree the bypass must be built. And now they're reneged on that, and we are very upset with the government.
A public inquiry was hit by delays and adjourned indefinitely. Now the scheme's been put on hold, the news has had a mixed reaction from people in the area.
It's just been a waste of money then, hasn't it? And all these trucks need to stop coming through this village because it's horrendous. It proper is horrendous. And they definitely need the bypass going over the other way, no matter what it takes away.
I don't want the bypass. I don't want the bypass because it's going to ruin the lovely countryside that we have around here. And we've got a motorway at the top there that goes from Manchester to it goes from Liverpool to Leeds, and they should use that.
Well, I'm not surprised. It's how it's been all along, and I don't think we matter around here. They don't seem to take much notice of us at all.
Just like the rush hour traffic through Mottram, Tintwistle and Hollingworth, plans for the bypass have spluttered and stalled over the years. The latest estimates putting the cost at £315 million. A cost too high, it seems, meaning the whole scheme has now come to a complete standstill, just like that rush hour traffic. Ben Bland, Channel M News.
Police are trying to identify the body of a man found in Woodland at Alderley Edge. They're refusing to comment on rumours he may have been battered to death. They're now wanting to hear from anyone who's got a friend or relative who's gone missing. A postman who was found with 6 bin bags of stolen mail at his home has been jailed for 12 months. Stephen Johnston from Northern Moor took thousands of packages to steal cash from birthday cards. Manchester Crown Court heard how he needed money to pay colleagues to finish his rounds so he could look after his young daughter. He admitted taking between £500 and £700 and was caught when bosses put 2 bogus packets in the delivery office in Wythenshawe. The American president is getting ready to announce plans to pull most US troops out of Iraq over the next 18 months. Barack Obama's told politicians of the idea, but it's thought up to 50,000 could be left behind to advise Iraqi forces. He's also asked for a ban on pictures of dead soldiers' coffins being published to be scrapped. Images of caskets returning from conflict abroad have been kept out of the public eye since George Bush Sr. was in charge back in 1991. New figures show HBOS made pre-tax losses of £10.8 billion last year. Bosses at the Lloyds Banking Group, which took over their former rival last year, have made the announcement saying they're expecting another challenging year during 2009. Some cost savings have already been identified and, as a warning, some jobs will go. The Treasury has condemned the former head of the Royal Bank of Scotland for refusing to hand back his pension. Former banker Sir Fred Goodwin's being paid £693,000 a year, despite the bank reporting the biggest corporate loss in UK history of £24 billion. Right, now with news of the fourth test against the West Indies and the rest of the day's sporting headlines, here's Mike Bradley.
Thank you, James. And here is the news from the Barbados, where England ended day one having reached 301 for 3, thanks in the main to a record opening stand of 229 between Andrew Strauss, he hit 142, and Alistair Cook, who fell 6 short of his century. Kevin Peterson, 32, and Paul Collingwood on 11 will resume at the crease from 2 o'clock this afternoon. Stockport County boss Jim Gannon, he's turned down the opportunity to become Brighton's next manager after discussing their offer with his family, and he'll now take charge of Saturday's Edgeley Park encounter against Huddersfield. Meanwhile, Manchester City are through to the last 16 of the UEFA Cup, and that's for the first time in over 30 years, following last night's 2-1 win over FC Copenhagen. Boss Mark Hughes, he spoke to us and gave us his thoughts on the game and also praised double goal scorer Craig Bellamy, who decided to play despite his build-up to the game being marred by the death of his cousin.
The satisfaction, obviously, is from winning the game, progressing to the next round. We're delighted with that. Obviously, a lot of big clubs have gone out of the competition at this stage, and we're still in it. So I think we deserve a little bit of credit for that. I think he showed great character, as he has done for many years. I think he showed real mental strength to be able to play tonight, because it's obviously a very close family member who sadly passed away, and he was very close to him, and it was touch and go whether or not he felt in the right frame of mind to play, but he wanted to play, and we benefited from that, and I think under difficult circumstances for Craig, he's come through, and obviously he's made the impact that he hoped he would.
Manchester Phoenix are through to their second cup final of the season after last night's 5-4 knockout cup win over the Newcastle Vipers. Alex Dunn, David Alexander Beauregard, Brett Cloutier and a brace from Nathan Ward sealing the 9-5 aggregate victory. The Phoenix are back in action tomorrow in Altrincham against the Coventry Blaze. Face-off there is at 6:30. In Rugby Union, third place Sale Sharks travel to 7th place Saracens on Sunday, knowing a win could put them back on top of the Guinness Premiership. However, Dean Schofield isn't expecting the Sharks to have things all their own way.
I feel like we're playing with a bit of form at the moment. You know, there's a lot of individuals playing very well. We're playing as a team very well. But yeah, the preparation's the same, as we don't get carried away. We watched the video of them in defence on Tuesday, so then we did the attack session Tuesday, which went really well, and yeah, we've just been out in the park again today. It's you know, there's a good buzz around here, and we're going up there for a win.
We've been putting a lot of focus on the scrum, because we know that Saracens have got a strong scrum. You know, it's line-outs, scrums. These are all the basics of the game. That if you don't win the good ball here, the backs can't perform. And if you look at our back line, you know, we have got a fantastic back line. So if we don't give them good ball, it's kind of pointless having them.
It's exciting. You want to play every week, and there's lads. There's a buzz on the training pitch, and there's lads who just want to be involved and want to play in it, and it just, you know, it just generates a good atmosphere around the club, around training, around game days, and like I say, like, you know, there is 10 games left, and it won't be long before the season's finished. So we've just got to make sure we perform well.
And as we hinted yesterday, All Black Luke McAllister has confirmed he will leave Sale at the end of the season and return to New Zealand. And other Rugby Union news, England and Bath prop Matt Stevens has been banned from the sport until January 2011 after testing positive for cocaine following a game in December. Sam Goodman will have all the build-up to Sunday's Carling Cup final between United and Spurs from 5 o'clock. But to get you in the mood for that, we asked Olympic boxer and United fanatic genius Joe Murray for his thoughts on the big game.
I think United's been on great form recently, so I think they've got a great chance of winning, and hopefully they'll bring the cup home, instead of wasting my time holding it. I think United's got a great chance this year. I think they've been playing great football. Even though they've been getting a lot of 1-0s, it's still getting a wind behind them. So I think at the moment, I think United's confidence sky high at the moment, so I think they've got a great chance of getting it. I think Tottenham's all right, but I think everyone knows who's the best team in England is, and that's Manchester United, and I think they're coming home with the silverware.
And finally from me, in Rugby League, Salford City Reds have made one change for this weekend's Super League game against Castleford. Stephen Ratchford replacing forward Lee Dewitt. That's it from me, but please try and join Sam Goodman, who'll be here at 5 o'clock with all the latest news from Barbados and England's fourth test against the West Indies.
Mike, thank you very much for the update. Stay with us on the Lunchtime News, plenty more to come, including the parents fighting to save a school in Bury. And with Jade Goody's high-profile cancer fight never far from the headlines, we speak to a cancer sufferer who's pleased pleased it's making difficult issues easier to talk about.
I think it's crucial that we talk about it because it is part of life. It is something, whether it's your grandma's your first experience of death or your children, it can be any circumstance, and it's making it socially acceptable to talk about it.
Watching Friday's Lunchtime News, welcome back. Don't forget you can find all our reports online as well as this programme to watch there again too. On there at the moment, find out why school children have been getting an early morning hip-hop session, and you can also see the 4-year-old boy who's been given a life-saving award for helping his gran when she fell over in her bathroom. All that and more at channelm.co.uk. Next, the future of a secondary school in Bury is under threat as the number of children due to start there decreases. Now, parents in the area are campaigning to keep it open.
Another town hall, another meeting, another impassioned debate about the fate of secondary schools. And by the time it was over, there was no happy ending for these parents and pupils. The Channel M camera wasn't allowed to film proceedings, but there was little doubt how people felt afterwards.
And it's the people of Bury East that are losing out for this council's decision. I hope when it comes to the local elections in 2 years' time, this council gets it where it hurts badly.
In this case, what's at stake is the future of the Derby School in the Red Vale area of Bury and the Radcliffe Riverside in Radcliffe.
And quite honestly, no matter what we say, it's not going to make the slightest bit of difference. The schools are going to be amalgamated, whether the Derby High School wants it or not.
There's public money available to build a new school under the government's Building Schools for the Future programme, BSF, but only if the two become one, with the new premises being built in Radcliffe.
They're not listening to what we think at all, and it's about time they need to.
However, Derby's governors fear the new shared school will be oversubscribed and their school's individual character will be lost.
The governorship will change, and etc. It won't be the Derby as it is now.
We tried to change the decision of the local authority. As you heard, it was very hard work. They would not budge.
As a result, governors at the Derby School have withdrawn their support, and now it's back to the drawing board. Kevin Duffy for Channel M News.
The Met Police in London say they're confident they can cope with tens of thousands of United and City supporters who will be in the capital on Sunday. United face Tottenham in the Carling Cup final at Wembley at 3 o'clock, while City play West Ham at Upton Park in the Premier League at lunchtime. Investigations into a fire at an office block in the centre of Manchester are taking place. The building on Jackson's Row caught fire just before 10 o'clock. Deansgate had to be cordoned off, but nobody was hurt. There have been big celebrations for two lifelong friends from Oldham. The pair have known one another for 9 decades and have now had a party for their 101st birthdays. They've been telling us the secret behind a good friendship.
Rini, you and May have been friends for 9 decades, 90 years.
Yes.
What does your friendship mean to you?
It means a lot.
Did you ever think that you and May would be sat here aged 101 together?
No, I never thought about that, no.
And how does that feel?
It feels lovely. We kept it up, that right. You know, they never let one another down.
Now, Jade Goody's battle with cancer has never been out of the headlines for the last few weeks. Every day there have been new reports about her health, pictures of her wedding, preparations she's making for her 2 boys to be christened. Charities that work with cancer sufferers say they're pleased it's raising awareness of what they do. We've been to see a patient in Oldham to see how valuable she finds the support that she gets from the charity Macmillan.
I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2003. Had the operation, chemotherapy and some radiotherapy, and then in October 2006 it was discovered that I had further disease in my ribs and then in my spine. I have a Macmillan nurse who comes regularly visit.
Hi, Joanne, you all right? There. Oh, that'd be lovely.
We usually get involved in patients when they become palliative, and by that I mean when it's progressed from a primary diagnosis and it's spread from the initial place and gone into other parts of the body.
Initially I saw her every couple of weeks, 3 weeks, she'll sit and discuss anything I need to discuss, anything that's worrying me. We talk about looking further down the line and, you know, things that I've got to prepare for.
I brought you that pack that we talked about.
I know that it's confidential. I know that it's not going to go out to the four walls. So without her being a trained counsellor, she offers a listening support. And that is good because, like you say, you can't always talk to your husband because it's personal to him as well.
It is a difficult conversation to have, but some patients are easier than others. You know, it comes easier to some patients to talk about death and dying.
I think it's crucial that we talk about it because it is part of life. It is something, whether it's your grandma's your first experience of death or your children, it can be any circumstance that you might be discussing death with. And it's making it socially acceptable to talk about it.
It definitely is a taboo subject, and it's a shame really that in the modern age that we're in that it isn't talked about more. And if this can raise the issue and make people talk more, I mean, we shouldn't be waiting till we've got a palliative disease or a terminal disease before we start talking about death.
I think when you're diagnosed with secondary cancer, which is palliative, all sorts go through your mind at different stages, your funeral, you know, down to what your children are going to wear at your funeral, you know, how you're going to prepare them, how you're going to financially prepare them, and it's very personal.
I know that we can't prevent death, but I think if we can help somebody to achieve a good death, then that's all we can ask for.
Well, much of the weekend is looking like being pretty grey and cloudy. With the full forecast for us now, here's Michelle Eagleton.
I have to say it's not been the best of Fridays across Greater Manchester this morning. Very, very dismal indeed, and we had a lot of heavy rain really plaguing us. Highs are between 10 and 14 degrees for most places, so those temperatures have been milder, although about 9-10 o'clock this morning we did have a very blustering wind, making it feel a lot cooler than those temperature that we're actually seeing on the screen there. Now, this morning, as I said, dark cloud did dominate. We're going to keep that cloud for the remainder of the day. We might lose those showers later on this afternoon, so not all doom and gloom for you, especially if you have got plans to go outside maybe this evening. It should clear up by then, and then we are in for a very pleasant and dry night, and not too bad for the next couple of days either. For your weekend, it is looking pretty pleasant on Saturday and Sunday. We are going to get a few showers mixed in with the sunshine on Saturday, staying dry and sunny on Sunday, but get your brollies out the ready for Monday and Tuesday, because unfortunately that rain's on its way back.
This is the Lunchtime News from Channel M. Another look now at today's headlines. A man's being questioned after a baby boy was found dumped on the street in Bolton. Police tell us the 4-month-old was in the back of a car which had been stolen just a few minutes earlier. He's now been reunited with his mum. It's 2 years in jail for an air hostess who glassed a student in the face, leaving him scarred for life. Lisa Key was told in court her attack was vicious and wholly unwarranted. Work on a new bypass that was due to be built around Mottram has been put off until 2016. The organisation funding the plan needs to cut its budget. There'll be big disruption to city centre tram services from April. Details of an upgrade of all the tracks have been announced, which will stop direct services from running all the way through from Victoria to Manchester Central. There'll be replacement buses and a shuttle service in operation. We'll have more on those stories in our early evening news with Andy Crane this evening from 5 o'clock. But from me and the rest of the Lunchtime team, have a very good afternoon. Bye-bye for now.